The National Desk, America's News Now.
This picture says it all.
Partnership panic. Moscow's new defense deal with North Korea sparking outrage on Capitol Hill. Top senators now looking to retaliate against Russia. Plus,
remember that last year my rent didn't increase, but this year it increased.
Perception versus reality. What everyday Americans know about inflation and what many don't. And later,
you're strip mining it. You're strip mining Boeing.
Rounds of retaliation. Boeing workers claim they were fired for raising safety concerns. What the company's CEO had to say in response. From the nation's capital, this is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Dee Dee Gatton, and on this Weekend Edition, we take a look at the big headlines of the week, and we look ahead at what to expect, starting with the 4 big stories we've been following this week. The cost of staying cool, how much more Americans could shell out this summer as temps reach triple digits, decreasing for decades. The amount of men in the labor force has been dropping. What's behind the decline? And getting the green light, the massive aid package to Israel that includes billions of dollars in weapons, plus the debate on whether to send the country 2,000-pound bombs. And too close to call, a new poll shows President Biden with a slight edge over Trump, the unexpected group switching sides. The Biden administration is banning the sale of an antivirus software made in Russia. The White House says Kaspersky Lab poses a high risk to Americans' computer systems as they're able to steal sensitive information by installing malware and hacking users. The firm has several large U.S. customers, including critical infrastructure providers and state and local governments. The company and the Russian embassy did not comment on the ban. Previously, Kaspersky has denied having any ties to the Russian government. There's a new sense of urgency surrounding Russia's recent threats. Democrats and Republicans on Capitol Hill joining forces to designate Russia as a state sponsor of terrorism, as others warn that Russia's visions of domination reach far beyond Ukraine. The National Desk, Christine Frizzell, explains.
In response to growing global isolation, Russia appears to be on a friendship tour. Vladimir Putin seen here meeting with leaders in Vietnam, following a 2-day visit in North Korea, where he signed a mutual defense pact with dictator Kim Jong-un, prompting a new bipartisan effort on Capitol Hill for Russia to be designated a state sponsor of terrorism.
Russia deserves to be in this small, selective club of atrocity-committing killers.
Following Russia's invasion of Ukraine 2.5 years ago, with much of the West joining forces to assist Ukraine, Russia has relied on countries like China, Iran, and North Korea to keep its economy moving and its weapons supplies flowing in.
And the warnings run deeper than just here on Earth, with fears that despite signing a United Nations treaty vowing not to do so, that Russia may be positioning itself to deploy nuclear weapons in outer space.
This would be a catastrophic and devastating attack upon Western economic and democratic systems. Vladimir Putin knows this. Checkmate.
House Intelligence Committee Chairman Mike Turner warning of an emboldened Russia, already flexing its military muscles and space capabilities, and calling on President Biden to declassify the status of Russia's program. He's accusing the Biden administration of sleepwalking into what he calls an irreversible day zero, the day Russia launches its nuclear anti-satellite weapons into orbit, the day after which, he says, no one will be able to rely on space.
This crisis is the Cuban Missile Crisis in space, and the administration is failing. If there's something that's going to touch every human being on the planet, that's probably something that should be at the top of the list.
A list of threats that appears to some to be growing by the day. I'm Christine Frizzell reporting for the National Desk, America's News Now.
New details. Some of the crew members of the container ship that collided with the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore are flying home. Attorneys for the city of Baltimore say they reached a deal with the owners of the Dolly, allowing 8 of the crew members to leave. There are 21 crew members on board from India and Sri Lanka. The crew members have been confined to the ship since it collapsed with the Key Bridge on March 26th. A new report suggests the brutal heat waves in the southwestern U.S. were made 35 times more likely by human-caused climate change. That's according to a new report by World Weather Attribution. The heat wave started in Central America last month. Experts say the record-breaking temperatures were 2.5 degrees Fahrenheit hotter because of global warming from the burning of coal, oil, and natural gas. Americans can expect to shell out more cash to keep their homes cool this summer. According to the Energy Information Administration, the average monthly power bills are expected to be 3% higher in June, July, and August compared to last year. A senior meteorologist at Maxar says this June could be the hottest since 1950. When it comes to inflation, it may be a battle of perception versus reality for some. A new report examines what everyday Americans think about inflation. The National Desk, Angelo hit the streets to find out.
Just ask almost any American about inflation.
Prices have gone up and above what's normal.
And you'll hear stories of financial pain.
I remember that last year my rent didn't increase, but this year it increased.
But what do Americans really know about inflation? Survey results from Morning Consult published in Axios asked that question to roughly 2,200 everyday Americans.
Do you think it's gone up higher than it was last year?
Yeah, absolutely.
Morning Consult found the large majority of consumers correctly identified inflation as being more than just high prices, but incorrectly believe annual inflation is higher today than a year ago. While it's true that the rate of inflation has slowed, that doesn't mean prices have dropped. Greg McBride, Bankrate.
That's been really pronounced over the last 4 years, where prices have gone up a cumulative 22%. It's that 22% that's in people's minds when they're looking at price tags in the supermarket or anywhere else. It's not, gee, what was it exactly 12 months ago at this time?
Axios is reporting the majority of respondents were split between people who think that inflation means prices being high, about 20% said that, and those who think it means prices outpacing wages, about a third said that. But we just wanted to know if folks are worried about inflation.
Inflation increases the prices of rent, increases the prices of the food that you buy every day. So, of course, I am worried about inflation.
Are you worried about inflation?
I'm not worried about it, no.
Okay.
Right now, inflation's at 3.3%. Over the year ending, though, in June 2023, consumer prices increased 3.0%. A year earlier, in June 2022, the 12-month increase in overall prices was 9.1%. So all that inflation is stacked on top of each other, representing the prices we are paying now. But the inflation rate overall is lower than 2 years ago. Reporting in Washington, D.C., I'm Angela Brown.
The amount of men with jobs has been decreasing for decades. Jana Bowens with the Fact Check team is here with a look at the shift. How many men has the workforce lost?
Dee, close to 10%. Now, I've been looking at data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics and found the peak was back in the 1950s when more than 97% of men ages 25 to 54 were working. Today, only 89.2% are working.
Wow, what's behind the decline?
Yeah, so a survey from the Bipartisan Policy Center shows the majority of men not looking for work is because of physical, mental, or behavioral health reasons.
What's the impact of fewer men working?
Yeah, so the U.S. already faces a labor shortage of more than 1.5 million workers. And with fewer men working, that can make things even worse for our economy. Now, that survey suggests sick leave, health insurance benefits, flexible working arrangements, and paid personal medical leave are important to encourage those men who are able to enter the workforce.
And as we take a wider look in just a few minutes, Janae will be back to discuss more about the labor shortage as a whole. The Biden administration can now proceed with what is believed to be the biggest weapons package in history for Israel. The deal is expected to be worth $18 billion and include 50 F-15 fighter jets. Two key congressional Democrats had been holding up the sale but gave the green light on Monday. Next, the rest of Congress will be notified of the transfer. An effort to block the package would require a joint resolution. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says the U.S. is still debating sending a shipment of 2,000-pound bombs to Israel. Some leaders have raised concerns about what Israel would do with them.
It remains under review, but everything else is moving as it normally would move. And again, with the perspective of making sure that Israel has what it needs to defend itself against this multiplicity of challenges.
Blinken declined to discuss what the U.S. has told Netanyahu, but said the main concern is that Israel will use the bombs on densely populated areas like Rafah. A new Fox News national poll has President Biden with a slight lead over Donald Trump. In a head-to-head matchup, Biden is ahead by just 2 points. The poll also shows the president leading with older voters, 57 to 42%. That group went for Trump, 51 to 48% in the 2020 election, suggesting they're shifting away from the former president. Biden is also leading with black voters, 73 to 27%, compared to a 91 to 8% win in 2020. A new poll says 1 in 5 women aren't as motivated to vote in the 2024 elections compared to previous ones. Policy research firm KFF has a new report out that surveys more than 3,000 women voters. 6 out of 10 respondents say they are not satisfied with the choices for president. The survey shows some of the top issues for women voters are inflation, threats to democracy, and border security. Ahead on the national desk, America's news. Now, a violent transnational criminal gang infiltrating the U.S. The links to over 100 criminal cases. Plus, Boeing backlash. The company's CEO grilled by lawmakers on Capitol Hill. What he said to the families who lost loved ones in 2 Boeing crashes. Former border officials call it the Next MS13, a violent Venezuelan gang that has been terrorizing Latin America for years, now taking root in the U.S., according to an intelligence report. Joining Jan Jeffcoat to discuss is former Acting Commissioner of Customs and Border Protection, Mark Morgan.
It's the Tren de Aragua, one of the most dangerous transnational criminal gangs in the world. In fact, the headquarters, I read, was in a prison in Venezuela. That's where they operated out of, and it took 11,000 soldiers and Venezuelan police to enter the prison after a revolt there to try to dismantle some of the headquarters of this group. Tell me, though, what you know about this, Mark, and how dangerous this is for us here in the U.S.
Yeah, Jan, this is serious. What we do know, this is the largest criminal organization in Venezuela. They've been operating for a little over a decade under their current name. As you suggested, in recent years, they've expanded their operations to both South and Central America, including Mexico. And what we've seen, because of the chaos and lawlessness the past 3.5 years under this administration, they've taken advantage of that in our open borders. And now we've literally imported one of the most dangerous, violent, prolific transnational gangs into our country. And while I was in the FBI, Jan, I supervised an MS-13 gang task force. We saw the same thing back in the early 2000s, that gang exploited our open porous borders at the time. And we were slow on the roll, and we allowed that gang to take a hold in our country. I believe we're literally seeing history repeat itself right now with this Venezuelan gang, yet we're hearing nothing from this administration.
Meantime, we've got an illegal migrant from El Salvador, Victor Martinez Hernandez, now charged with raping and killing that Maryland mom of 5. He has connections to Salvadorian street gangs and a violent history that includes at least another home invasion and attack and another murder from his country. Now, this goes back to what you said before about the vetting process allowing these criminals into our country.
Yeah, Jan, thanks for bringing this up. Again, we need to continue to talk about this. I've said it. I'm going to keep saying it. If anyone from the left, anyone from this White House says that we, quote, properly, and here's the term, fully vet everyone we encounter, it's just a lie. They're intentionally misleading the American people to give them a false sense of security. Here's the reality. Here's the truth, is that we do not, I'll say it again, we do not have the ability to effectively and properly vet everyone that enters our country. Many of these countries we do not have diplomatic relationships with, and we get nothing with respect to that individual's criminal background in their home country. Like, for example, Venezuela. We get zero from that country. Oh, by the way, that country also refused to take back their citizens. In addition to that, we're only as good as the information we have in our databases. So if someone doesn't show up on a U.S. database and there's no DROG, that doesn't mean they're not a criminal. It means we just don't know. But yet every single day we're allowing individuals like that into our country. Yeah. The virtual signaling about our American values to justify this chaos is literally playing Russian roulette with our nation's safety.
And local officials right now are infuriated. Listen to what Maryland's governor had to say.
I mean, we have an immigration policy that needed to have been dealt with and was not. And the consequences then fall on us as the chief executives of our states. The consequences fall on us as the leaders of our individualized jurisdictions. And we know that we have got to fix a broken immigration policy, and we know that we need Congress to act on this.
Yeah, we keep hearing this over and over from governors, Democratic governors there, state officials blaming the federal government, allowing these rapists, murderers into our country. And also, Mark, the pressure on for the administration to issue a national terrorism alert after ISIS-linked migrants crossed the border. You know, what's interesting is that the Department of Homeland Security had issued this national terrorism alert last year and let it expire. Tell us what this alert will trigger and why it's so important.
Well, Jan, think about what we've been hearing just in the past few months from the FBI director as well as the greater intelligence community. The director said the terrorism threat against our homeland now is the highest he's ever seen it. He's been quoted as saying he sees, quote, blinking red lights every single day. The director, as well as DHS, and again, the greater intelligence community has said over and over again that they're concerned about terrorist organizations exploiting the flow of illegal immigration in our porous and wide open southwest borders. And then in backdrop, the fact that they just arrested 8 Tajikistan terrorists that were released into this country. Yeah, there's a problem with our border. And the DHS bulletin, the National Threat Advisory System, was designed to specifically let American people know about the threats facing our country. I think the American people need to understand and know the reality about the threats posed by this open border.
Former Acting Commissioner of Customs and Border Protection and fellow at the Heritage Foundation, Mark Morgan. Always a pleasure to see you, sir. Thanks for joining us.
You bet. Thanks.
On Capitol Hill, Tuesday was a day filled with questions and, for some, anger. Boeing CEO David Calhoun spent 2 hours sitting in front of a Senate panel admitting to retaliation among several other issues Boeing is currently facing backlash over. The National Desk, Jeff Harris, breaks down what happened.
For the majority of the hearing, the subcommittee hammered Calhoun with questions about the company's safety lapses, quality mistakes, plus whistleblower allegations and then retaliation taken against those employees.
Sitting in front of a Senate subcommittee to testify, Boeing CEO David Calhoun started by apologizing to the families of the victims killed in crashes involving the company's planes.
On behalf of all of our Boeing associates spread throughout the world.
Shortly after, Senator Richard Blumenthal, chairman of the subcommittee, pressed Calhoun about turning the company around.
How can you reassure us that Boeing is going to, in fact, end this broken safety culture?
Calhoun stressed the company is taking preventative steps to address any safety issues, including adding inspectors and changing engineering practices.
We have increased our quality inspectors significantly.
Blumenthal, along with other senators, also questioned Calhoun about the company's treatment of whistleblowers over the years.
How many of your employees have been fired for retaliating against whistleblowers?
Senator, I don't have that number on the tip of my tongue, but I know it. It happens.
But Tuesday's most heated exchange came when Senator Josh Hawley accused Calhoun and Boeing of strip mining the company and cutting corners.
And you are strip mining it for profit, shareholder value.
Something Calhoun says he doesn't agree with.
Senator, I don't recognize any of the Boeing you described.
Now, at the end of the hearing, the subcommittee did request several pieces of documentation, including Boeing's product quality testing and also deductions, documents Calhoun said that he would provide. I'm Jeff Harris reporting from Washington.
Up next, crime ring crackdown. 5 sisters indicted in a multi-state scheme that netted them nearly $1 million. Plus, knocked offline, unrelenting heat, putting pressure on air conditioning systems the circumstances that could cause them to shut down altogether. The National Desk team of reporters is bringing you the headlines from coast to coast. We're taking the pulse of America. And we begin in Washington state, where federal prosecutors have indicted 5 women in a mail fraud scheme that netted them almost $1 million.
It was actually over 2 years that they committed this fraud. We know that it was at least $1 million that was lost to fraud.
5 sisters indicted for mail fraud and conspiracy to commit mail fraud. Federal prosecutors say they made more than $1 million in fraudulent returns, getting a refund for the items they supposedly mailed back, then turning around and returning the items for a second refund at the actual store, even flying to multiple states across the country to make the returns and avoid detection.
It's not a victimless crime. It's not a small amount of money we're talking about here, both in this case and as well as the problem at large. It's having real financial impacts to our retail partners.
After harrowing footage was released last week showing a violent road rage incident, a combat gym in Las Vegas is offering to teach people basic self-defense, simple skills that can help in any situation. But the instructor still emphasizes caution.
If they are violent or you feel like you're in danger, you can leave. You just have to call PD and tell them I was just in an accident, but the guy tried to attack me. So I'm over here now where I'm safe, right? So again, caution, be cautious.
Britt said emotions can run high when in a crash. He suggests taking a moment to assess the situation before engaging in contact with the other person. Consistently hot temperatures have knocked many air conditioners offline in North Carolina. Technicians have been working around the clock to make repairs, but it's not always about needing new parts. Sometimes the electronics can't work in the heat.
It's like thinking of yourself if you go for a jog in the heat and you're out of energy and breath. That's why they're running in the heat a lot.
With forecasts predicting the heat is here to stay, technicians are expecting to remain on call 24 hours a day. Still to come, the story is going viral on our website, from a Florida surgeon charged in his wife's death to Dollar Tree facing new allegations. Taking a look at the top trending stories on our website right now, a Florida surgeon is facing charges in his wife's death following a botched surgery he performed. A report from the Florida Department of Health also alleges malpractice against other patients. Dollar Tree is under fire after the FDA says they left recalled applesauce pouches on store shelves for 2 months. The product has been linked to illness in more than 500 children. A new mural honoring Willie Mays has been painted in Birmingham, Alabama. The Baseball Hall of Famer died earlier this week at the age of 93. Those stories and more available right now at thenationaldesk.com. A set of cold cases in Kentucky could be cracked even sooner thanks to the help of college students. This spring, 6 students from Northern Kentucky University took part in a unique cold case class. The students were able to organize several cases in the state's only cold case unit, bringing them up to standard. Detective Coy Cox, who runs the unit, says he's confident the cases are closer to being solved.
I probably had lost a lot of trust in this generation. And these 6 students have restored that trust.
The students' identities remain anonymous since the cases are still active. They said the class helped them gain a closer look at the day-to-day life of a detective and a new approach when looking at cases. Ahead in our next half hour, getting serious about security. The added measures Silicon Valley companies are taking to separate potential workers from Chinese spies. Plus, letting go of guilt. The surprising new study on screen time for kids. Instead of taking away devices, the change parents are urged to make. You're watching The National Desk, America's News Now. You can catch us live weekdays from 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. and 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern Time, and anytime online at thenationaldesk.com. We'll be right back.
The National Desk, America's News Now.
I always will have a fear of this happening again or resurfacing just because it's so easily happened to anybody.
Deepfake crackdown. The amount of AI-created images on the internet skyrockets. The bipartisan group of senators taking action to take them down. Plus, destructive deficit, America drowning in debt, and it's getting worse, even faster. A closer look at the jaw-dropping numbers and if Washington can do anything about it. And later, soldier sentenced. How much time an American could spend behind bars in Russia after accusations of theft and threatening murder. From the nation's capital, this is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Didi Gatton, and there is a new effort in Congress to stop the publication of non-consensual sexually explicit images often made with artificial intelligence. It's an issue that's affected both public figures and high school students. National correspondent Atra El-Nashar has the latest from Washington.
More and more deepfakes, AI images or videos misrepresenting someone, are being used to exploit, shame, and blackmail teenagers.
My name is Elliston.
Like Elliston Berry, who was just 14 last fall when she learned nude photos portraying her and her friends were on social media.
I always will have a fear of this happening again or resurfacing just because it's so easily happened to anybody, which is what happened to me.
A boy at her school took innocent photos from their social media pages and ran them through an app to create deepfake pornography. It took Snapchat more than 8 months to take the images down.
Although the images are off Snapchat, that doesn't mean that people might not have them on their phone.
Barry and her mom were on Capitol Hill on Tuesday as a bipartisan group of senators unveiled a bill called the Take It Down Act that would require social media platforms and websites to create a system for removing this kind of content within 48 hours of receiving a victim's complaint.
The technology right now is far too easy for people to use.
Between 2019 and 2023, the number of deepfake videos online skyrocketed by 550%, according to the online safety group Home Security Heroes. And 98% of deepfake videos online are pornographic. The The Tech Industry Coalition Chamber of Progress says they're encouraged to see Congress tackling the issue, but that tools for flagging this content already exist, adding more funding for law enforcement to prosecute predators is an important part of the solution, and the Take It Down Act doesn't fix that. With AI involved, it could get more complicated. House Majority Leader Steve Scalise recently said House Republicans are not interested in new AI regulations.
Are you worried that that might get in the way of progress on this?
You know, I'm not. I think that's a very different thing when it comes to regulating AI generally. And I think we are going to see widespread bipartisan agreement. This bill that we introduced today, I've got 12 co-sponsors, 6 Democrats, 6 Republicans.
Until something changes, the issue is adding anxiety to an already difficult time to be a teenager. On Capitol Hill, I'm Atrell Nishar for the National Desk, America's News Now.
New details. Silicon Valley companies are getting serious about security vetting of staff over concerns China could use potential new hires to steal company data. The Financial Times citing U.S. officials who say Google and high-profile startups like OpenAI are going that route. The effort comes as U.S. officials warn about the threat from Chinese espionage over the past 2 years. Earlier this year, FBI Director Christopher Wray went even further.
It's using that mass, those numbers, to give itself the ability to physically wreak havoc on our critical infrastructure at a time of its choosing. The PRC has made it clear that it considers every sector that makes our society run fair game.
In March, prosecutors charged a former software engineer at Google with allegedly taking artificial intelligence trade secrets while working with companies based in China. Experts say parents should let go of guilt when letting their children use smartphones and social media. A recent study found parents who feel guilty about their kids' screen use are more stressed and less likely to report positive relationships with their kids. Experts say it is important to take a closer look at the science behind claims about the negative impact of screens, adding that the studies often show correlation but not causation. The federal budget deficit is expected to hit $1.9 trillion this fiscal year, almost $400 billion more than projections made in February. A big reason for the increase is due to changes the Biden administration made to student loan repayment programs. The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation also needs more money to cover 5 bank failures from the last fiscal year. Extra Medicaid and defense spending have further inflated the budget. The deficit is projected to hit $2.8 trillion within the next 10 years. Joining Angelo Brown to discuss is Executive Vice President of the National Taxpayers Union, Brandon Arnold.
Brandon, you look at those numbers and you shake your head for one thing, but you also wonder what needs to be done right now. All these numbers are coming from the Congressional Budget Office. This is a nonpartisan organization. So what does the White House, what does Congress need to do now when you look at those numbers?
Yeah, I mean, these numbers are absolutely astonishing. There ought to be alarm bells going off in the White House and on Capitol Hill right now, telling them, first of all, just stop making this problem worse. A lot of the reasons why the numbers have gotten so much worse since February, when they've since added $400 billion in extra debt, is because they're making bad policy decisions. They spent more on student loan forgiveness. Biden has done that unilaterally. They passed a massive emergency supplemental bill to give money to Ukraine and Israel that didn't have any spending offsets whatsoever. So therefore, they need to stop doing what's making this problem so much worse and then take steps to fix it, like creating a fiscal commission and putting all types of spending on the table as we look to get our financial picture in order.
You know, one thing that always comes up is this fight over raising the national debt. You know, Congress suspended the debt limit in 2023, but that will, of course, expire next year. Are we looking at another showdown?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, they kicked the can down the road once again. They pushed the debt ceiling expiration to the beginning of 2025, which is only 6 months away now. It's not that far away. But they wanted, of course, to get to the other side of the election so they didn't have to make tough decisions right before an election. Well, guess what? They need to start talking about those tough decisions now. I know it might not be politically popular, but neither is raising taxes to a massive extent in order to cover this deficit. Neither is making massive reductions in Social Security benefits or Medicare benefits, because those programs are going bankrupt and Congress has its head buried in the sand by and large.
One thing that is happening right now, House Republicans are pushing to pass 12 spending bills before the start of the August recess. Is it likely that Congress can get any of these bills passed? And what is the most important piece of legislation, first up, though, when you look at this packet of bills?
Yeah, I don't think they'll be able to get them done before the election, but the House is doing the exact right thing here. They're setting a blueprint for spending and also building in some spending reductions into these plans. And that is absolutely critical now. They need to change the narrative on Washington, and I think that's what these bills do. In terms of the most important one, the financial services bill, that contains funding for the IRS, which has been absolutely off the rails in going after individuals and requesting $100 billion in extra funds to ramp up its enforcement activities, building a tax prep service without the authority given to it by Congress. It needs to be reined in, and that's exactly what this legislation would do, in addition to turning the tide and starting to reduce overall spending in the federal budget.
And quickly, let's talk about some of these tax code. Vast portions of the tax code are set to expire. The impact on families, the impact on individuals.
Yeah, I mean, the tax code is going to change dramatically at the end of next year if we don't do anything about it, because the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, a lot of those portions that benefit families and small businesses will be gone. So if you think about a single worker making $60,000, barely keeping her head above water in this tough economy, her taxes are scheduled to go up by about $1,800 at the end of 2025. Congress needs to act. We're getting mixed messages from the president on this, but we need to act. We need to do so in a fiscally responsible manner, but we need to make sure people aren't facing enormous tax increases at a time when the cost of living has risen dramatically due to inflation.
All right, Executive Vice President of the National Taxpayer Union, Brandon Arnold, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Angelo.
The U.S. is facing a growing labor shortage. I'm back with Jana Bowens from the Fact Check team. Let's start with the numbers, Jana. How big is the labor shortage?
Well, Dee, the U.S. is facing a gap of more than 1.5 million workers. Now, 6.6 million people are unemployed, but there are more than 8 million job openings.
And as we take a historical overview, experts are looking to the pandemic.
Exactly. So I've been digging into a report from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce that shows 120,000 businesses temporarily shut down and more than 30 million workers were unemployed during COVID. Now, we're now seeing fewer people working, and experts say we can expect the workforce to continue shrinking.
Of course, this varies from person to person, but why haven't some Americans returned?
Right, like you said, there's a lot of reasons, but millions of Americans decided to start businesses after the COVID-19 pandemic, and millions of Americans are making a living off of social media. Now, the Chamber of Commerce notes the pandemic drove at least 3 million adults into early retirement, and a lack of affordable childcare has also kept some Americans out of the workforce. Now, Dee, employers are now having to get creative to attract and keep new workers.
Right, and it'll be interesting to see the impact on the economy long term. Yeah. Janae, thank you. For more on this Fact Check team topic, including links to their sources, scan the QR code on your screen or visit thenationaldesk.com. A U.S. soldier detained in Russia has been sentenced for theft and threatening murder. According to Russian state news, U.S. Staff Sergeant Gordon Black has been sentenced to nearly 4 years in a Russian penal colony. He had traveled to Russia to visit a woman believed to be his girlfriend. Black was accused of stealing money from the woman and assaulting her. State media reports Black partially admitted to the theft, but not to charges of threatening to kill the woman. The court handed down a sentence of 3 years and 9 months. His lawyer said Black will appeal. Autopsy results are in for the death of Riley Strain, the college student whose body was discovered weeks after he disappeared in Nashville. According to the medical examiner, the 22-year-old died from an accidental drowning and alcohol intoxication. The Metropolitan Nashville Police Department says Strain became separated from his friends after having numerous alcoholic drinks in several bars on March 8th. His remains were found on March 22nd in the Cumberland River. His family says they're reviewing the results, including those of a private autopsy which they had conducted. The son of convicted killer Alex Murdaugh has filed a defamation lawsuit against multiple companies. Buster Murdaugh is suing Warner Brothers, Netflix, Discovery, and several other companies along with a journalist. He claims the defendants attempted to link him to the death of Stephen Smith, who was found dead on a road in South Carolina in 2015. The Murdaugh name got national attention after his father was convicted in the death of his wife and his younger son. New findings show gun injuries spiked during the pandemic and remained elevated last year, according to the CDC. It found emergency medical service encounters for firearm injuries climbed in 2021 to more than 25% higher than 2019 levels. Those rates started to drop, but they were still higher in 2023 than before the pandemic began. Firearm injuries were highest among people ages 15 to 24, but the largest increase in injuries was among children and teens up to age 14. Still to come, our team of correspondents breaks down this week in Washington, from the first presidential debate to the push to ban cell phones in schools.
And welcome back. Our Washington Bureau covers the nation's capital every day, and our team of national correspondents always reporting on the important issues facing the country and how they impact you. We're days away from the first presidential debate, which takes place on Thursday night, and our national correspondent Matt Galka will be there for us. Tell us what to expect.
Yeah, Steve, much anticipated debate here, and it's one we didn't even know would happen at one point. We didn't know if the two presumed candidates, President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump, would eventually get together and come to terms and actually square off here. But in sort of a snap decision, they did about a month or a month and a half ago, and here we are getting ready for that debate. And while some people out there will say, look, there's probably not a lot of undecided voters, there are still probably enough, and that's why this debate is very high stakes for both candidates. If you're Joe Biden, you're looking for a strong performance, especially after multiple polls show that voters are concerned about your age and your mental fitness and your ability to handle the job. You're looking for a strong debate performance. And for Donald Trump, undecided voters are looking to see if they didn't vote for you in 2020, if you've changed it all. Are you a more measured candidate now? Are you a more measured person, if that's what was turning them off in the past? So both candidates, a lot on the line here. They might not be able to win the election with just this one debate, but they certainly could lose it depending on both of their performances. And of course, we have to stay tuned to see if it goes off the rails like one of their debates did previously back in 2020.
And we'll see you at the debate in Atlanta. And one of the foreign policy issues that will surely come up at that debate is the United States relationship with Russia. National correspondent Christine Frizzau, there was some significant news this past week regarding Russia and North Korea. Tell us about that.
Yeah, Steve, remember back in 2012 when Mitt Romney was sort of ridiculed for calling Russia America's greatest geopolitical threat? Well, a lot of things unfolded this past week that shows that he would be dead on today, with the exception perhaps of China. So last week we saw Vladimir Putin make visits to both Vietnam and a 2-day visit to North Korea. He rode around in a limo with Kim Jong-un to sort of show their friendship. But more importantly, he signed a defense treaty of sorts with Kim Jong-un. This raised a lot of eyebrows in Washington. It even brought two sort of opposing senators together. We saw Senator Richard Blumenthal, a Democrat, and Senator Lindsey Graham, a Republican, come together to call for Russia to be designated as a state sponsor of terror. We also heard from the head of the Intelligence Committee, Congressman Mike Turner, warning on not only Russia's threats here for the United States, not only here on Earth, but Russia's threats really around the universe, saying, that Biden is sleepwalking when it comes to a catastrophic modern-day Cuban Missile Crisis. He's blaming the Biden administration for not being outspoken enough about this threat of Russia wanting to put nuclear weapons in space. He wants the Biden administration to declassify some of that intelligence to make the case that we need to garner worldwide support to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, the second largest school district in the country, they're going to ban the use of cell phones by students during the school day. National correspondent Audra Elnishar, tell us more about that and the potential national implications.
Yeah, so the concern here for a lot of teachers and parents too is that kids are distracted when they're in the classroom, with smartphones really being an extension of ourselves at this point, being on social media. And a lot of schools, a lot of states even are considering similar bans or other measures to clamp down on that distraction. And you mentioned Los Angeles just passed that ban that's going to take effect in spring of 2025. They haven't worked out the logistics yet, but it's just a sign of more and more jurisdictions going this way when it comes to smartphones in classrooms. Gavin Newsom, the very progressive governor of California, actually has this in common with his political rival, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. They both want to see smartphones banned in schools. But it's not as simple as it seems, because a lot of parents want their kids to have smartphones in case there's an emergency, like a school shooting, and they want to be able to reach their kids. So it sounds like a simple solution, but it is definitely an emotionally charged one, and it's going to be a big change, better or worse.
Audra, Christine, Matt, as always, excellent reporting, and thank you all for your hard work. Back to you.
Coming up next, vacation turned violent. A man attacked in downtown Asheville while visiting the area. What happened before he was stabbed with a needle? Plus, I-5 explosion, a chaotic scene on a major American interstate after a propane tanker truck exploded. This is the National Desk, America's News Now. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering issues that matter to you. From a suspect charged with stabbing a North Carolina man to a serial bank robber nabbed in Florida. We're taking the pulse of America, but we start with a propane tanker truck explosion that shut down a major highway in Oregon.
I came down here to realize it was a truck that was exploding over and over again. Took a little video, went back because I was like, oh, I don't want to get hit with a propane tank flying through the air.
This cell phone video shot by a K2 viewer captured the scene at I-5 between Going and Skidmore. Portland Fire and Rescue arrived to find a trailer carrying more than 100 small propane tanks pulled over on the side of the interstate.
In the period of about 15 seconds, with the increased number of tanks getting involved and beginning to pop like popcorn across the freeway.
Jordan describes what he saw happen next.
I saw one jump over to the other side of the freeway. It's gone now, but it was on the other side of the freeway.
Graves says fire crews dumped 5,000 gallons of water on the fire, leaving behind a mess.
The victim, a tourist from South Carolina, reported the May 31st attack to Asheville police. Detective Nathan Diecker says that MacArthur started talking to the tourist after he refused to give him money, but he continued to walk back to his car and started to help his family get in.
He suddenly felt like a prick or a sting in his back and turned around and saw the same man that had been asking him for money.
He went to Mission Hospital, where Diecker says they confirmed he was in fact stabbed with a hypodermic needle.
Have you guys had situations like this often?
No, this is the first one that I've actually encountered.
But they are very familiar with MacArthur.
Several times for years downtown. There's an array of crimes that have been committed by him.
The tourist was released from Mission Hospital and put on antibiotics, and Diecker says this is something that can definitely put those who spend time in downtown on edge.
You know, we do have a lot of folks on the street asking for money, and it is kind of unnerving for somebody not to get that money and then, you know, be attacked, especially like that.
Photos show police cars and yellow tape blocking off a Wells Fargo bank in Palm Springs last week. Authorities say the 911 call came in around 9:30 Thursday morning. A man, later identified as 51-year-old Daniel Cruz, allegedly went up to a teller's window holding his waistband, demanding cash. A similar situation happened the very next day at a PNC bank. According to the police report, the suspect walked in wearing the same clothes and threatened to shoot everyone in sight if they didn't do what he asked. Another customer in line claims that Cruz showed her a glimpse of his pistol, but never pulled it out. Cruz made his first appearance at the Palm Beach County Courthouse Tuesday. He's facing charges for all 5 robberies without a firearm. While police say he repeatedly threatened both employees and customers, he never pulled out a weapon.
Still ahead, the stories making headlines next week, from a key meeting on the East Palestine train derailment to the first presidential debate. Looking ahead to stories making headlines this week, on Tuesday, the residents of East Palestine will gather with rail industry leaders at a meeting held by the NTSB. The agency will discuss what caused the disastrous train derailment last year. Wednesday night marks the start of the 2024 NBA draft. The Atlanta Hawks hold the first pick, and right now it's unclear who they'll choose. LeBron James' son, Bronny, is also up for grabs. Thursday will be this year's first presidential debate between President Biden and former President Trump. The event will be moderated by Jake Tapper and Dana Bash and air live on CNN at 9 p.m. Eastern. This week, Black veterans traveled on an all-expenses-paid trip from Atlanta to the nation's capital. 26 veterans flew into Reagan National Airport for the first ever Juneteenth honor flight. The group visited memorials built in their honor. The Honor Flight Network says a lot of work went into getting this trip done. Among the group was a 101-year-old, 3 Purple Heart recipients, and 4 women veterans. So great to see them there. That'll be all for us on the weekend edition of the National Desk, America's News Now. Don't forget, you can catch us live from 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. and 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern Time. Check your local listings. You can also watch us online and catch up with the latest headlines on thenationaldesk.com. Thanks for watching the weekend edition of The National Desk. I'm Dee Dee Gatton, and from all of us here, have a great week.